Just a little bit background on the Bean Consulting Group. We're Oracle Gold partners specializing in Hyperion solutions, specifically Hyperion Planning, S-based financial management, and data relationship management. We have experience in higher education, utilities, healthcare, telecommunications, financial services, retail, and a number of other vertical industries. Excuse me. The Hyperion Planning Solution has been around for a little bit over 10 years now, and is being used by over 3,800 companies worldwide on an on-prem solution basis. And what we found over the 10 years is that by using a solution like this, companies spend quite a bit less time in the forecasting process and quite a bit less time gathering data, and they're able to spend quite a bit more time analyzing data. See the percentages there. They spend 38% less time doing forecasting and 23% less time gathering data. As a result, they're able to spend 35% more time doing analysis of the data, which helps them make better decisions. And this solution's now been optimized for the cloud and taken out to the cloud. And what does that mean? Well, it means we're going to have a much faster adoption on-premise solutions taking months to roll out and implement. We're talking about weeks in terms of getting a solution up and running. You still get that best-in-class functionality, and with the cloud deployment, you have the ability to deploy both in the cloud and on-premise. You have flexible deployment options where you can do development in the cloud, for example, and then host your own solution on-prem and migrate the development, any development that's been tested and approved, can be moved to your on-prem solution. So there are a number of different options that way as well. So with that, we'll open it up for our poll questions. Melissa?
So we opened our first poll. Do you currently own or use Oracle Hyperion Planning on-prem? If you could please just check one of the options, I'll go ahead and display the results. Okay, so as you can see, some people do use on-prem and a couple people don't use Hyperion Planning. Okay, on to the next. The next poll, do you currently license PBCS? Yes, using it, yes, haven't implemented it yet, or no. If you could please submit your answers. So it looks like a couple people do own PBCS but haven't implemented it yet, and then the majority do not own Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. With that, Chris, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thanks. So before we took those poll questions, we were talking about sort of the implementation. In fact, the cloud implementation offers a much more rapid time to market or time to value for bringing your system up and going live. And how do we do that? Well, we have a program called RAIN, which stands for Rapid Assessment, Implementation, and Navigation. And essentially, what we do is we have some templates that we're able to implement that allow us to implement in a much more rapid time frame. You can see kind of in this basic time frame chart here, we spend the first several weeks assessing, meaning we're reviewing the requirements for the implementation, mapping those against the templates that we have, and beginning to do some prototyping. Then in that second implementation phase, we start to finalize any calculations, web forms, data loads, etc. And then by week 8, we actually have the application up and running live, and we're conducting training and having users actually navigate the system.
Chris, let me jump in here. We're having a problem seeing your screen. It's still showing the login screen.
The login screen?
Yeah, like just the title page. Oh, there we go. Looks like we're back.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Are you able to see the screen transition there okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about now specifically about workforce planning and what are some of the requirements and considerations that a company would want to think about when implementing a workforce planning application. And the template that we have that we'll be taking a look at stands for, it's called CLEAR, which stands for Cloud Leveraged Employee Account Reporting. So when you plan for your workforce, there are typically different ways. What we've seen with a number of different clients that we've worked with in the past, there are a number of different ways and requirements in which clients want to plan their employees. In some instances, they want to plan by employee. They might want to plan by position or job code rather than employee, so a slightly higher level than at the employee level, but still a fairly granular level. Or they might want to plan by both position and employee. And then at a slightly more high level, you might want to plan strictly by labor categories and use, head count and average salary and average benefit costs, that sort of thing. And so what we've tried to do is build a solution that provides all of these different capabilities, or the ability to use any or all of these for your employee and workforce planning. Some of the tasks that need to be performed in an overall workforce planning solution. Loading employee data, so being able to get HR data out of your HR system, whether that be PeopleSoft or EBS or what have you, getting that data loaded up into planning, things like specific employee properties like salaries, status, and so forth would be loaded. And then managing that employee status into the future. So you may have an employee that's currently active and working, but maybe they're going to go on a leave of absence for 3 months at some point in the future, and you want to plan for that. Managing employee transfers as well, which can be done either in a single step or in 2 steps, and we'll talk about that a little bit more once we start to take a look at the solution. Planning for new hires or to-be hires, reconciling those to-be hires. So once a planned new hire has actually been hired and becomes an employee that we're getting data loaded from the HR system, we want to reconcile that TBH and remove them so that they're not being double counted. And then reporting things like headcount, FTE, and the expense detail related to your employees and new hires. Some of the other considerations, things like contingent workers, full-time and part-time workers, multi-year planning, position control, expense spread, how you're going to spread your costs, your employee costs across the periods. They're going to be based on the number of working days, the number of pay periods, that sort of thing. And then some of the configurable types of calculations, things for taxes, things like taxes and benefits, overtime, bonus, and holiday pay. So with that, let me bring over the demo here. Oh. Can you see that okay, Melissa?
Yes, it's showing.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. So I'm currently logged into the Oracle Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service solution, and I've gone ahead and actually launched the application, which is our workforce planning solution. And I'm going to just kind of walk through some of the tasks or some of the considerations that we mentioned previously. From an administrative perspective, we have a number of different assumptions, rate assumptions we may want to collect for forecasting purposes, as well as having a work calendar. So if I actually go and look at the monthly work calendar here, you can see we have the number of days, number of work days per month, as well as the number of pay periods per month. And that gives us a distribution that can be used for doing those spreads. The tax rates, we have Social Security tax rates, unemployment, both state and federal, and then Medicare. So we have all the various tax rates that can be applied at an individual employee level. We can also have average tax rates, which I'll show you here in a minute, where we do more average kinds of things, and we just use an average or blended rate for all of the taxes. And that's more on the sort of the bulk employee or the employee type planning. We also want to be able to do bonus calculations. So how are those bonuses allocated throughout the year, and how are bonuses calculated? They can be either a straight dollar amount for a bonus or a percentage basis, so we have the ability to calculate bonuses using one or the other of these, depending on how the bonus calculation is configured. And we also have overtime that we're able to track, so we can have, a certain amount of overtime that's calculated for a particular department. So as we start to look at the tasks of doing employee planning, again, there are kind of two ways we can do it, either looking at our existing employees at a, and you can do this both, like I say, for position and employee-based planning, or at a more high level. So here you can see I'm missing the stuff up top for some reason all of a sudden. So you can see, here's all of our employees for, in this case, the particular corporate finance division and the location of headquarters. And we can see then by position, by employee, we are able to see what their current status is and if they're on leave of absence and that sort of thing. And we can then go in and deal with managing these employees using our business rules. So we may want to change their status or transfer them. And if we change their status, so for example, this employee 1003, I'm going to put them on a leave of absence, and these actions that we're able to take on employees is all customizable. So this is part of the template that we have you fill out when we first come and implement the solution. These are the sorts of things that we'd be looking for you to define so that it would be specific to your HR implementation and the sorts of statuses that would be coming out of the HR system. So again, in this case, I'm going to put this employee on leave of absence for 3 months starting in November and starting in October. And once we launch this, we'll see now that their status has changed for those 3 months to leave of absence. And if we look at the expenses, we'll see that their expenses, all of their salary expenses, have dropped off here for the months of October, November, and December. In addition, as I mentioned, we have the ability to do more average or high level, what we're calling bulk employee average costing. So I have an average, in this case for this particular department, I also want to plan for 4 exempt headcounts with an average salary of $1,000 a month and average benefits of $200 a month. And I can then calculate out an average cost here, which would get totaled up with all of my other employees that I'm planning by employee, and those headcounts would also get totaled up, so they would get all rolled up together to give me a total cost, both for my employees that I'm planning at an employee and position level, as well as these employees that I'm planning at a more bulk level. Again, all these things would be configurable, and we have a few of these on here. So how are the expenses spread? In this case, we're spreading them based on the number of working days per month. We're using an average rate for tax calculations rather than specific state rates for tax calculation, which would be picked up as part of the properties that are loaded for an employee. So if you wanted to do rates at a state level, it could be configured that way, and then we load in the tax rates, the state unemployment tax rates, et cetera, for each state, and it would be calculated at an employee level for each employee based on the state that they are coded with as part of their properties. Same sort of thing with benefits. For the employees that you're planning, at an employee level, you can have your benefits either by named benefit or, again, using an average rate similar to the average benefits for both employees. And so, again, if we went back down here and took a look at our employee expenses, we can see here, we don't see their benefits there, but all of the benefits here that are listed as named benefits, and again, that would be the same sort of thing. That would be part of the template that we would complete in those first week or two of the assessment phase. We'd be identifying what those named benefits are, so we get those input specifically for your implementation. But here you can see the cost for each named benefit that would be applied. In this case, since we're doing named benefits rather than an average rate for those employees. All right. So with that, jump back to the slide deck here. And we'll open it up for questions.
Great, thanks, Chris. If you have any questions, be sure to type them in the console, and we'll get those answered right now. Looks like we've got a couple coming in. Okay, one question. Can you please compare the data loading process in PBCS version versus on-prem?
Sure. An on-prem solution, you're going to be able to have much tighter integration with your source system, that HR system, using FDMEE, depending on what your source system is, whether it's JD Edwards or PeopleSoft or EBS. There are landing pages within FDMEE to load your data directly and do tight integration through the on-prem side. On the cloud side, that data is going to be extracted to a flat file, uploaded to your cloud instance through FTP, and then FDM would pick up and do any mappings on that end still. So the mapping piece would remain the same. It's really just being able to do really tight automated integration. You'd be able to do more of that with an on-prem solution versus the cloud.
Great, thanks. Second question, can I use this app in conjunction with another PBCS application? I.e., do I need a separate PBCS instance for this, or can I use it with my business planning application?
You should be able to use it with the current PBCS application unless you used all of your plan types within your current PBCS application. So I guess, the answer would be it depends a little bit, but we'd want to specifically look at your particular PBCS implementation. If it has available plan types, and it really just requires one additional available plan type to implement the workforce piece, So that, hopefully that answers that question.
Next question, how do you approach automation of sending and loading data to and from PBCS to the internal company network?
Well, again, this goes down to kind of the ability to do tighter integration with an on-prem solution, perhaps versus cloud, at least currently. In order to automate it, you could certainly automate the extract from your source system to a flat file. That is definitely, should be an automated, something that could be run as an automated process. FTPing that file up to the cloud is something that could be automated, and then the FDM piece that picks up that file and does the mapping could also be automated. So there could be a way to sort of sequence those things into some kind of batch that could run all of those things, or at a minimum, you could certainly time them so that they ran at certain intervals where you knew that the file would be uploaded in time for the FDM process to run. Hopefully that answers that.
How are ASO cubes loaded from BSO and PBCS? Built-in tools to do this in PBCS? I think it's a two-part question.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. How are ASO cubes loaded from BSO and PBCS? I think that's the end of the first part. Built-in tools to do this in PBCS.
So your PBCS instance should have one ASO cube, and the data from that, the data in that ASO cube would be loaded through FDM as well. Much the same process that was described for the employee properties will be loaded to the BSO cube that is the employee plan, the workforce plan. I think that was the first part. What was the second part? Sorry?
If there were built-in tools to do that in PBCS.
Well, yeah, FDM is really the tool to do that.
Great. Okay, any more questions? Be sure to type them in. Otherwise, you can reach out and ask Chris or I at any time. Chris, if you want to put your contact information up.
Yep.
How does planning store items such as active for the employee?
How does planning store the status such as active? Was that the question?
It's those items, but I think it means, yes, status.
Okay. So any employee status is sourced from the HR system. So whatever their current status is in the HR system, that would be loaded typically on a monthly basis. And that new status would then be used and applied towards all future months. So that's how the status is forecasted, based on the most recent actual status for that employee. Then, as I showed, you can use business rules and a smart list to define any custom statuses that would be part of your HR system, or they would come from your HR system to define or to be applied to any future months.
Great. Thanks, Chris. It looks like we've got all the questions answered, unless anyone wants to type any last-minute questions in. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to Chris. His information's on the screen. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time today, and thank you, Chris.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.